Godly men make a difference in our world. We're with author Eric Metaxas. You've written about Charles Colson. Most of us have first learned about him in Richard Nixon's White House, hatchet man,
Yep.
cold-blooded, heartless.
Yep.
And you call him a great man for the faith.
Well, yeah, he was cold-hearted. He was kind of a bad dude.
Yeah.
But you know what? Theologically, we're all bad dudes until
true.
God
That is
reaches
true.
in and changes things. In case you think you're wonderful, you're not wonderful, right? But God is wonderful, and Colson is the classic case. Now, I had the privilege of knowing him personally, and I have to say that, you know, you see a man up close, and you can't fake it, right? I mean, this was a man who went from being the most ambitious kind of political monster to giving his life so radically to God that people didn't believe it. They made fun of him at the time, and they said, oh, please, you know,
Wow.
Colson, you know, that's like, you know, Don Rumsfeld or whatever. You kind of think like this guy like that, he'll never soften up and become a... Colson did. He gave his life over to God. I mean, in the middle of the Watergate thing, he understood that, you know, I've been running and running and running and running, and what do I have? No peace, no joy. And he wept like a baby. And this is, I guess, the summer of '73, gave his life over to Jesus, and then decides, this is, you know, one of the themes of my book, Seven Men, the main theme is like sacrifice. He decides to voluntarily go to prison. He didn't have to. His lawyer said, no, take a plea bargain, whatever. He says, I want to do what's right before God. And he decides to go to prison. Everybody tells him he's crazy. He says, no, I'm going to do whatever I need to do to honor God. God will honor me. I mean, that's just part of his story, but he is a hero. He's an intellectual hero. You mentioned that his books changed your life. His books changed my life. This was an intellectual who gave his mind to Jesus and wrote books that, I mean, I wouldn't be who I am without the books of Chuck Colson.
You know, it was a dark time in my life, and I didn't know if I was going to keep my faith, and I got a copy of Loving God.
That's my favorite book of his.
You know what? It was the collection of stories, but it was this ex-Marine and this political hatchet man, you know, and now he's investing his life in prison.
Yeah.
And it helped me redirect and understand.
I mean, Loving God is, I mean, there's so much in there. I hope people will go and get Loving God. But the thing about Colson that amazes me is that he went into the prisons. For 35 years, he spent his life sharing his faith with prisoners. Imagine a guy who had an office literally next door to the President of the United States. Now he's going into prisons. Every Easter, he was preaching the gospel in prisons. And when he died a year and a half ago, I was with you at your church a week later.
Right. When
he died, people in the media still didn't believe that his faith was genuine. After 35 years of living his faith, they thought, oh, it's hilarious. I mean, this guy, he was the real deal. And I knew him personally, the only one in these 7 men in this book that I actually knew. He was as real as it gets. I came to love him, to call him a friend and a mentor, and he totally changed my life. But, you know, he's still changing lives through BreakPoint, through all the things that continue his legacy, the Colson Center for Christian Worldview, and Prison Fellowship, most important. He's changing lives today because he made a decision 40 years ago.
The Manhattan Declaration, all of those things.
Yes, the Manhattan Declaration, I'm involved with that now, all this stuff. I mean, he just, all the way to the end, I introduced his last speech. He was on fire, you know, the day that his physical body failed him, he was preaching the truth. I mean, there's a model for men.
But there's a piece of him I don't want the people to miss. In listening to you, he became a Christ follower and he was changed.
Yep.
But I get the sense he didn't become a cream puff.
Oh.
You worked for him and maybe it wasn't always fun.
Okay, good point, good point. He was still hardcore. He was still ambitious. He was still demanding, very demanding. You know, I worked for him. But Jesus was in the middle of all that. And so it's completely different. It's the same and completely different. That's the beauty of it. Yeah, he didn't become, as you said, a cream puff or a pussycat. I mean, he was tough, but it's a different kind of tough. Right. There was love, you know, wrapped around and in the middle of the toughness.
That is so good. Thank you. Eric's given us another message, another assignment. You know, we may have failed publicly and horrendously and think we've forfeited everything that we have accumulated. Not so. God is a redeeming God. Give Him your heart, give Him your character, give Him your life. You can make a difference. You can be great. If Chuck Colson can do it, if he can transform, I believe you and I can too. Godly men make a difference. Thank you, Eric.
Thank you.